Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm Nur Amirah binti Yahya, 1170023, and today I'm going to present to you about XYZ Petroleum ICT Security Policy, Item 4, which is on Human Resources Security. Now, let's move on to the first part, which is before service. The objective of this part is to ensure that the employees, contractors, third parties, and others understand their responsibility for ICT security to minimize risk, such as errors, negligence, theft, fraud, and misuse of ICT assets. Matters that should be complied are as follows. The first one is describe clearly the roles and responsibilities of XYZ Petroleum officers, employees, and third parties involved in securing ICT assets before, during, and after service. The second one is carry out security filings for XYZ Petroleum officers, employees, and third parties involved based on legal, regulatory, and ethical requirements in line with service requirements, level of information to be achieved, and expected risk. The third one is comply with all service terms and conditions offered and current regulations in force under the terms of the agreement. Next, this is the example of ICT confidential agreement that is created for XYZ Petroleum ICT security policy. Now let's move on to the next section in item 4, which is during service. This part is to ensure that all XYZ Petroleum users are aware of information security threats, their roles and responsibilities, to support XYZ Petroleum ICT security policy, and to minimize the risk of mistakes, negligence, theft, fraud, and misuse of assets. Matters that should be complied are as follows. The first one is ensure all XYZ Petroleum officers, employees, and third parties manage the security of ICT assets per laws and regulations. The second one is ensure that awareness and relevant training on the security management of ICT assets is provided to XYZ Petroleum ICT users regularly in carrying out their duties and responsibilities, and if needed, provide it to third parties too, involved from time to time. The third one is ensure that there is a process of disciplinary action and or legal action against XYZ Petroleum officers, employees, and third parties in the event of laws and regulations violation. The last one is strengthen the knowledge on the use of ICT assets to ensure that every ICT facility is used in the right way so that the importance of ICT security can be assured. There are two types of SOP created in this ICT security policy for during service, which is procedure for employee in use of ICT services, and the other one is disciplinary action process. Let's talk about the first procedure. Procedure for employee in use of ICT services, which is divided into three parts. The first part is protection of IT equipment of premises, which is to not leave ICT equipment unattended in public places, and then the employees need to use non-conventional laptop bags and keep the equipment away from public eyes, and then only authorized person with documented receipt for XYZ Petroleum property to remove specific IT equipment from the premises. The second part of this SOP is use and dissemination of company information. Any information owned or used by XYZ Petroleum should be protected. Next, only those employees who are authorized by board of directors or executive team or whose job description permits them to do so may speak on the behalf of XYZ Petroleum. Then, any breach will be considered a violation of policy concerning confidentiality, and it may constitute a violation of state or federal law. The third part of SOP is monitoring of network communications. XYZ Petroleum reserves the right to monitor at any time any communication that use XYZ Petroleum networks in any way, including data, voicemail, telephone logs, internet use, and network traffic to determine proper use. Next, XYZ Petroleum will review network communications activity and will analyze use patterns. XYZ Petroleum may choose to publish this data to ensure that company resources in these areas are being used according to this policy. Last one is, no employee may knowingly disable any network software or system identified as a monitoring tool. This is the sample receipt for XYZ Petroleum property, and this one is the sample agreement to return and care XYZ Petroleum equipment. The second procedure in during service section is disciplinary action process. There are 5 steps in this procedure, which the first one is verbal counseling or coaching session. This step is required to bring up their awareness, the employee awareness, and clarify expectations. And then it is also to help employees recognize the performance issue. The second step is verbal warning. The verbal warning should recap what was discussed, the policy violation, prior discussions or warnings, behavior that needs to be modified, and expectations of the employee. The third step, written warning. An employee will be provided with a disciplinary warning form. The manager should present the written warning form and clearly explain why the warning is being given, and expectations should be documented as to what behavior should change or what infraction or policy violation occurred. The next step is suspension with or without pay may be given in consecutive days or may be served non-consecutively, may be paid or unpaid dependent on the infraction. The last step, which is the fifth step, is termination. If the previous steps of the discipline process have been unsuccessful, or an employee does something egregious, and it is determined that steps in the warning process are to be bypassed. Now, this is a sample of disciplinary warning form, and then this is a sample of letter of termination. We have reached the last section of item 4, human resources security, which is after service. So the matters that should be complied in this section is ensure that all ICT assets are returned to XYZ Petroleum following the appointed rules or terms of services. Next is revoke all access to information and information processing facilities per the rules set by XYZ Petroleum or the terms of service. The procedure that is created for this part after service is ICT Checklist for staff termination procedure. There are 7 things that need to be checked for staff termination, which is first, initiation of termination, next, termination or exit interview, then phone, email access, network and cloud access, property, and the last one is personal. For further information of this procedure, you can see it in the XYZ Petroleum ICT security policy itself. Okay, this is the sample form of terminated employee IT checklist. Okay, so now we have reached the end of item 4, human resources security in XYZ ICT security policy. This particular section in the policy is really important to be understood by all employees, as it can ensure that they know their responsibility in securing XYZ Petroleum ICT asset security. I think that's all from me. Thank you and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh.